During my travels in the service of His Majesty's Navy, I have met many ancient mariners who plied their skills in the dark and cold Tasmanian waters. They heard and saw things they related to me in the dark of night, at their lowest ebb, that I had to consider true because they were there. They met ancient Tasmanians from 2 centuries ago who told them of their belief that Moinee and Droemerdene were the children of Pendulums, the sun, and his lunar wife Vina, the moon. Moinee was the primeval creator, forming the land and rivers and making the first man, Parlevar, from a spirit residing in the ground. Moinee had an evil twin brother known as Droemerdene. Their parents were unconventional as cosmic deities go, at least in the aboriginal world of deities. Vina was a moon goddess and Pendulum's wife. That's unusual considering on the mainland all the moon deities of the various tribes are men. Now Pendulum is the god of light as well as being the sun. Here again Tasmanians swapped roles with their mainland cousins by making the sun a man. A minimum of 10,000 years separate any connection between these two cultures, so to assume anything is the same is presumptuous. It's believed the Palawa had no dreaming. Parlevar was the first Tasmanian Aboriginal or Palawa person. To make him, Moinee, who was a particularly powerful being, took some earth up to the sky and fashioned a man who had a tail like a kangaroo and legs without knee joints. This meant that Parlevar could not lie down and had to sleep standing up. Now Droemerdene, the evil twin and the great star spirit, saw this and decided to help poor Parlevar. Not much is known about Droemerdene, but he seems to have been associated with the Tasmanian devil and to have a role in sending plagues along with another bad guy by the name of Rapper, also associated with Tasmanian devils. The problem is no one bothered to find out about their mythology. Droemerdene decided it would be a good idea to cut off Parlevar's tail and then cured the wound by rubbing grease on it. Then he proceeded to make knee joints for Parlevar. Parlevar stayed in the sky for a very long time, but eventually, he came down to the land by walking down the Sky Road, or what we know as the Milky Way. Meanwhile Moinee was busy fashioning the rest of the earth. In making the rivers, Moinee was helped by Lawler, the little ant. Lawler cut the ground to make the creeks and smaller streams. Tar, the forester kangaroo, helped to shape the land. Wherever he sat, he made depressions in the ground that filled with water and became the lagoons and lakes. Parlevar was supposed to look like a kangaroo, so that's why you see kangaroo totems. Moinee then created the actual kangaroo, who emerged, like the first man, from the soil. I heard from an old whaling captain that Droemerdene appears as the star Canopus. A very important celestial body, as they all are when you're on the ocean at night. My captain friend relied on the stars in the frozen night sky. Canopus is the brightest star in the southern constellation of Carina and the second brightest star in the night sky. It has a luminosity over 10,000 times the luminosity of the sun, is 8 times as massive, and has expanded to 71 times the sun's radius. Its enlarged photosphere has an effective temperature of around 7,400 K. Canopus is undergoing core helium burning and is in the blue loop phase of its evolution, having already passed through the red giant branch after exhausting the hydrogen in its core. Eventually Moinee had to fight his brother Droemerdene and his team of many devils because Droemerdene changed the shape of man, and that could not be tolerated. The battle raged for many hours but was not recorded by any Europeans who may have heard it. Finally, after the exhaustive battle, Moinee was hurled to his death from the sky to take the form of a big stone at Cox's Bight, just down on the southwest coast. Droemerdene fell exhausted at Louisa Bay, further down from where you are. Tuji Low, or what's known as Port Davy, is just north of there, and that's where the devils live. The area has valleys and caves, inhabited by spiritual sprites. Do not travel in that area, Rob and Levi, or at least be very, very wary. The rugged coastline has blowholes, caves, and dramatic rock formations, all in spectacular sight. Horn pines grow on the riverbanks of one of the most pristine river systems, the Davy River, which must be holding riches protected by the devils and spirits. Some clans created animal spirits from trees to aid their way in the physical world. Devils walk alongside people carrying a torch, but they remain unseen. If the hair on the back of your neck goes up or something brushes against your tent at night, Levi, it's probably not a devil or a spirit. The beach reclines at the far end of an exquisite table-shaped body of water in the far southeast corner of Tasmania in a place known as Recherche Bay. Before the French arrived in May 1792, this place was called Liliatia. It was an important ritual site for the Nuinan people, who journeyed in bark canoes from Brunei to meet with the Needwandi and Naineen people, who traveled overland from the west. For millennia they made this trip, the same seasonal migration, the same ritual feast. Not anymore. Not since Ria Warawa was loosed among them. Ria Warawa was the intangible force of evil that could infest all things. Since the beginning of time, Ria Warawa was held in check by the great ancestor who lived in the sky. On that day it was loosed upon them. Manalarjuna, the great aboriginal resistance fighter, described talking to his devil as a personal spirituality that provided all-seeing powers. Manalarjuna was a Parlevar man, chief of the Planjamariner clan in what is now the Ben Lomond tribal area of northeastern Tasmania, but his day was way back in 1800 when there were plenty of thylacines around as well as pawela. Mushrooms have been found in this area that could explain his all-seeing powers. He's described as being 5 feet 8 inches and wearing grease and red ochre all over his body as the chief and leader of the Parlevar people. He may have been short of stature, but he was a giant pain in the British ass. The prime badass of mythical proportions was a dude named Rajo Rapper. A large black man associated with darkness and born on a strong wind. Rajo Rapper is sometimes depicted as the creator of the Tasmanian devil, but always as the spirit of the western wind and a harbinger of disease and demons. I haven't met your new boyfriend. What's he like? Oh, you'd like him. He's an evil wind god associated with the color black and dark spirits that come out at night. There were many demons for the children to be concerned with when the lights went out at night. A creator spirit called Tigana Marabona was known as Twilight Man, or you could worry about Nama Burg, who was the ghost of the thunderstorm, and Ragi Roba, the revered spirit. Laga Robana, the awful spirit of the dead, or Mayanginya, the bringer of death, could also give the children of Hobart the willies in those days. Miran Bugana Luana, or the bright spirit of the night. She was good for dreams because she was kind and friendly. If you had to dream, it was best to try and invite her in. My wife would tell the children and I of Warawana, the spirit being balanced, or Warawa, spirit of dead, because they were both associated with celestial bodies. She would point to the sky when she would tell us about them, but it was always a different part of the sky. I guess they were free-range celestial bodies. Don't forget Badenala, the shadow man, my son would add. We looked for him lots of nights along with Kanatana the bone man. We set traps for them, waited out all night, and even had a bunch of the other children help us to try and trap them. You should have been chasing ghost fairies and elves. Where did the dead go, Sir Malcolm? I was told by someone who heard it from King Billy that the spirit of the dead traveled to a place over the sea to the far northwest, called Muai. The island of the dead, Tini Draenei, was described as an island in the Bass Strait where the dead would jump up white men. What does that mean? I asked. Jump up white men refers to the aboriginal skeleton being reborn and getting up from the ground to roam the island. Phantasmic return dead. Tribes differ on these customs sometimes. Dead might be cremated or put in a hollow tree or a rock grave. Different clans, different customs. Fathers kept the bones of ancestors for talismans and amulets. Bones could be worn on a kangaroo sinew or kept in a kangaroo skin bag. There doesn't seem to be much difference in the history of the Thylacine species DNA line and that of the Homo sapien DNA line known as the Palawa or Tasmanian Aboriginal.